to chat with you all. And there's going to be a couple of opportunities for you all to connect and check in and things like that. So hopefully it's breaking up the rhythm of us just talking the whole time and helping to break that up a little bit. And yeah, so I'll give everybody 1 to 2 more minutes before we get started. It's almost 5 o'clock. So take this time to do that one last thing that you want to do right before this meeting starts, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Hey, Jessica. I just got a notice about the tune-up event. Was somebody going to post that to Nextdoor?
That's a great question. Oh, Heather, are you on here, Heather? I don't know what our process is for that. Heather, if you heard that, otherwise I can follow up with Heather in a second here. Do we post sort of thing? Hello. Mary Elizabeth asked the notice that we sent out about tune in, tune up. Does Valley Can or do we ever post that to Nextdoor?
You know what? I have not done that. I can check into that. So we have sort of an interesting account with them, and the primary messaging there has to be real time. So yeah, I could probably send a notice like right before the event, as long as it's in time with that. They limit you for, like, you know, blasting marketing all the time and spamming it and filling it up. But yeah, for sure. And I'll check in with Valley Can too and see if they're using that platform.
And just to clarify, so what Heather means in real time, typically we usually reserve it for like an alert about real time air quality, like health, public health issue, right?
Right. Just a little history for Nextdoor. It really was only like in the last 1.5 years that even agencies like ours were allowed in. Primarily when it first was initiated, it was only like sheriff's departments and police departments and city emergency offices that they even allowed into that space. And something of note is that we as an agency cannot see what's in there. So oftentimes people have called and said, well, you need to go in my Nextdoor. They're talking about somebody burning illegally. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, right? As a public agency, we can't actually see that. It's just your neighborhood. And so they're very careful about how much information they allow from outside agencies filling in that platform. Long answer to a short question.
Thanks for following up on that. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's right about 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started with a couple of housekeeping items before we review what's on the agenda for this morning. Sorry, I keep saying morning. This evening. So let me go ahead and go over some of those items. And as always, if you have any questions or if you're encountering any technical difficulties, feel free to reach out to my team. You'll notice they have Harder & Co. listed in their name, so this will help you identify them if you need any support. So just as a reminder, this is your 27th meeting, and some of our standard procedures, just to let you know to please mute yourself if you're not currently speaking. This really helps to reduce any audio feedback and make it so that it's helpful for everybody to be able to hear and stay engaged. We also ask that you please edit your name so that we have a sense of your affiliation. So if you're a CSC member, that means including the CSC label in your name. And then if you're a resident, that means including the letter R. For other participants, such as members of the Air District or CARB, you can use the signal AD or CARB. And then if you're just a member of the general public, please make sure to put the letter P in front of your names. If you have any other organizational affiliation, you can also note that down within your name, as some of you have done already. If you need any support updating your screen name, again, just let us know and we're happy to assist you with that as well. And then just as a visual reminder, the easiest way to do that is to click the little 3 dots that appear by your name and then select the rename feature. Similarly, if you're joining us with a phone call as well as like computer visual, make sure that you're syncing both of these streams, and this will help it so that they're connected and we have a sense of who's speaking and who's attending the meeting as well. So you can do this by clicking the little caret that appears next to the microphone icon, and you can then select to sync your video with your audio. Once again, this is the naming convention that we use to update our screen names. And then another reminder again to please stay on mute unless you're speaking. And then if you would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature to ask any questions. If you are calling in, you can use a *6 to mute and unmute. And you can use the *9 to raise your hand and lower your hand. Another reminder that if you are part of the stipend program, you need to stay in this meeting for 75% of the meeting, which in this case entails just about 90 minutes out of the 2-hour meeting. And then just another reminder about some of the productive discussion agreements that you all have worked to craft. So some of your goals I'll go over very high level include helping to achieve these meeting goals, focusing on the solutions here, letting everybody participate, being civil and respectful, staying on point and on time, attacking the problem, not the person, and seeking common ground in discussion. And then these are the same rules in Spanish, which we don't need today. Now, just very quickly to review today's agenda, we have just the general welcome, which we're doing right now, and then we're going to have some time for a quick icebreaker. We'll also be reviewing the action items tracker as part of the standard agenda items that you all have asked to be included on a monthly basis. We will also have some time to discuss the community steering committee membership. And then we will also have some time to discuss the subcommittee feedback and information from last month. And then, as always, we have standing updates, some wrap-up items, as well as a little bit of time at the end for public comment. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm actually going to hand it off to Jessica here to share some welcoming remarks, and then we'll also introduce our community co-host for this month.
Thank you, Gabby. I will be brief and just introduce myself. I'm Jessica Olson. I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources here at the Valley Air District. And I want to welcome you all and thank Ms. Margot Prowse for being our gracious community co-host this month. We met several times really leading up to this meeting and had a lot of great back and forth. In addition to the standard agenda setting meeting we always have right after, the week after every meeting. So I appreciate all of you who attended that meeting. And then of course, Margot, who I will pass it off to now to sort of give introductions, and we can dive right into the meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, forgot to unmute. So I get a little bit of a soapbox here. So I just want to say, we'll see how this goes. We're trying to keep everything a little short. My name is Margot Prowse. I'm a resident on the Stockton CSC, and I'm a retired nurse. Since my retirement in 2013, I've been focused on the issue of climate change. And in these last 8 years, I found that almost every organization and committee that I participate in has evolved from very little talk to now talking about climate change as one of their primary concerns, from religious groups to political organizations and even book clubs. The urgency is really starting to soak into our consciousness, not so much yet on most day-to-day levels, but especially when we see the dire effects, which we've all felt in terms of wildfires, the droughts, We don't feel the hurricanes, but they do affect us, and torrential rains. And it's a generational issue. Our children and grandchildren will have to be dealing with the consequences for years to come. There are many times when I feel very panicked, and it seems as though things are moving way too slowly. And the same can be said for this committee. But we have to stay focused. As I've checked my weather app lately on these gorgeous days, and they've been gorgeous, our local air quality is again unhealthy for sensitive groups. So we had a few days where it was very clean right after that big rain, and here we are again. So we've all been meeting these long hours in front of Zoom, working towards better air quality in this neighborhood, you know, for almost 2 years now. We have our SERP. The subcommittees are starting their planning, and they're really moving. I'm really impressed with the subcommittees and how they're working. And the air monitoring should start to show us if we're making any progress. It all takes time. But because we've been meeting on Zoom, I really feel as though we're not getting to know each other as well as we might. And I think we can be a force to be reckoned with if we do get to know each other. While we're in this grouping together for the next many years, I'd like to keep working on getting to know each other. And while I don't want to waste much of time in these meetings, we're going to share a very short icebreaker. It'll be randomized. I think Gabby's going to talk us through how it's being set up. We'll have about 10 minutes in a group just to meet a few people. And the icebreaker question will be, what is your favorite dessert? Okay. Gabby?
Thank you, Margot. We're excited to have you helping lead this meeting today, and are excited about your suggestion to have some time to connect with folks. So as Margot said, we're going to facilitate this process with randomized breakout groups and encourage everybody to join. Margot's recommendation was to have all folks participating. So this includes folks from the Air District or CARB or other agencies, just really getting to know one another and then just chatting about this question. And because you have 10 minutes, just see how things are going. If your question is ending a little bit sooner, you can all spend some time just talking about the work that you do and some common ground that you may have as well. So in a minute here, my colleague Jessica Silva is going to open up these randomized breakout groups. Just a reminder that this is completely voluntary. If you do not wish to participate, you can stay in this main room and turn your screen off and just wait and use this time for something else that you might need to do. But for those who do wish to participate, if you're having any issues getting into the room, just raise your hand or signal in the chat some way so we can help to move you around manually if you're having any trouble. So with that, I'm going to see if we are able to open those up and then go ahead and get started with that. And we will also just post the question in the chat for everybody to remember. But as Margot said, the question today is, what is your favorite dessert?
Okay, I'm opening all the rooms now.
Thank you, Jessica. Quick question, Jessica. I think because I handed over host permissions, I can't see if the interpreter is in the same room as Douglas. Can you confirm?
Yes, I put both interpreters in.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I muted
Gabby, you're
myself.
muted. Oh.
Yeah, if anybody in here needs help moving, let us know. If you just wanted to stay in this room, that's totally fine too.
Debbie, you should see a request on your screen asking you if you'd like to move. Same with yours, Maria and Jennifer.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm fine. Is
Okay.
anybody gonna talk before me? Hello?
You should see a little window appear on your screen. Are you on a computer screen?
I don't see any window. I'm having trouble with my computer, so maybe that's why. Try it again for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna try one more time. Do you see that now?
There we go. I got it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer, do you see a request to join? SB, I pinged you again.
Jennifer said she's opting out.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that. And then Maria.
Hi, sorry, I was on another call, so I just joined.
No problem. And so we're doing icebreakers. Would you like to join one of the rooms?
Well, actually, Cynthia's also on the call, so I just confirmed with her because I just got back to the office.
Gotcha.
So, so she's there representing us. So did you still need me to be in there?
It's totally up to you. It's just a casual icebreaker. So if you'd like to join, you can. And if you'd like to just stay in the main room and then wait a little bit, that's fine too.
Okay,
Just let
I'm
us
gonna
know.
go ahead and do that. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Welcome back. I think there's like folks trickling in. There is a slight countdown, so it might take just a little bit of time for everybody to start coming back.
We actually decided we were getting hungrier and hungrier talking about food, and we had to stop talking about food. So
that's totally fair.
That was a pretty cruel icebreaker of Margot to put out there from when you're in a meeting from 5 to 7 to sit there and just talk about food in the beginning of the meeting. That was just really cruel.
In her defense, we got her in a post-lunch meeting, you know, the idea sounded different on a full stomach, you know.
No, it was fun. We just, poor Stacy got stuck with 2 carb folks. So, but she was a trooper. We told her you could feel free to like bail and say, put me somewhere else if she wanted to. But it was great to spend a little time and get to know her a little bit better.
We're glad to hear that.
It wasn't so bad. Oh.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope that was a nice change of pace, and we hope you learned something new and maybe got some ideas for some baking or something of the sort this weekend. And thank you, Margot, for putting that idea together and getting everybody to chat with one another this morning. I keep saying morning, I'm so sorry, this evening. Okay, so we'll actually get started now with our first official agenda item of the day. So what we'll be doing is reviewing the action items tracker. And as a reminder, this is going to be one of those items that we revisit on a monthly basis if possible. And that this is the action items tracker that was introduced to you last month. So for this piece, I'm actually going to pass it off to Jessica from the Air District to walk us through any updates.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gabby, and thank you all. And definitely, Margot, I agree. That was a very fun icebreaker. I'm going to share my screen. As always, every time we go through something like this, I just want to remind folks where this lives. What I am reviewing right now is on our Stockton website. It is the follow-up on CSC meeting action items. And what it entails is a list of the action items, it will include soon all of the action items from today's meeting on a running list of pending, so action items that still have follow-up, and completed action items. And this will just continue to grow as we move forward with CSC meetings. I will have maybe someone from my team drop this in the chat so you can follow along at your own pace. As you recall from our discussion last time, we went over it in a little bit more detail and ran down item by item. But as you know, especially with agendas like today's agenda, where we have several items to get to, at every meeting, we won't have time to go over every single action item. So the recommendation was to work with the agenda setting meeting folks, or maybe even just recommendations during this time on the agenda, to pick a couple of items to focus on as an update to the CSC. And so today, there were a couple of action items we went over. Last meeting, we talked about them, but the meeting before is the date during which they were brought up, and they were enforcement action items. 2 of them were questions for the district, and 2 of them were requests for CARB. And so we plan to, throughout the meeting today, address both of those. So right now, in order to address a lot of the questions that are related to item number 2 and 3 about district enforcement, I will pass it to John Cadret, who is our compliance manager up in the Northern Region office in Modesto, go over a lot of updates related to these 2 items. And then later during CARB's update, during standing updates, Scott Wall is going to go over item number 15, which was actually emailed out to the committee, but he'll just sort of go over a little bit or kind of discuss that piece when we get to the CARB update item. Otherwise, as you can see from the link that maybe I'm assuming was just dropped in, there's still other items that we are working on and we are progressing through. Some of them will be addressed in subcommittee meetings, or we're still working on maybe it's something that hasn't been completed yet. So it's just a matter of time before we will complete it. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and I will pass it to John Cadret, who is going to go over just briefly some of the materials that we posted to answer these two questions. After which we will then drop those links into this tracker and then call those complete and move them to the completed section. So John, if you can go ahead and take it away, and I'll pass it to you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Good morning. And Margot, I'm going to agree with you. These would be much nicer to be in person and see everyone rather than little 1-inch screenshots of people. I think it would help us all get to know each other better, and I don't know, we're all more comfortable that way. And I guess I'll add in agreement with you that this is a slow process. So I started working here 30 plus years ago when I was just a young kid out of school, and you know, things change, maybe not so much day to day, but over time. And you know, I feel like for my time here, things have gotten better, and so I hope that we can continue to make these kinds of efforts and improvement. So let me kind of jump into this stuff, and bear with me. I'm probably going to struggle to share a screen and to talk and to do everything all at the same time. So you should be seeing now the web page that Jessica showed just a short while ago. I think I'm seeing some nods, so that is good. If we start, one of the questions was develop a map with a list of the sources. And so that exists already on the main page down here, Stockton facility emissions. You click on that and it opens up. There you go. And you should see the area and where all the different sources are. You can put a little pointer on, it gives you some information in detail about them. So that the map exists with sources, and people can have access to that and share that. Then let me back up.
You're gonna have to click this open a new tab, I think.
Yeah, so let's see.
John, how frequently is that updated?
We update this. That's a great question. I can answer that. We update this annually. And it's a process that we'll go through. We go through a whole process to update our emissions inventory for the area, at which time we'll update not only if there's maybe new facilities or facilities that have come offline, we'll update that, but we'll also update the most recent emissions inventory. And so we'll go through that process every year, Margot.
All right, so now are we back to me sharing a screen?
It's not sharing, if that's what you're asking.
It's not sharing.
Correct.
Try again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me, before we get going too far, I do want to I spent a little time with Taylor kind of going over the questions and understanding and helping, trying to make sure that what we were putting together helped. So I appreciate Taylor spending his time to meet with me and go over these things. I think one of the questions before we go too far was how do we do an inspection and what pollutants are looked at? And so when our inspectors go out and do an inspection, it isn't necessarily to look at for a particular pollutant, it's to look at all pollutants that are identified on the permit or through rules at the facility. So when we go out to a site, we're looking for, is there unpermitted equipment? Is the permitted equipment operating correctly and appropriately? And are they tracking and doing the things that they're supposed to do? So we don't just identify, oh, we're looking for NOx sources. Let's go out and look at only for NOx. When we go out to a place, we look for everything that they might have. So I think that kind of takes care of that. The next part here is, I have to look at my notes so I can find it again. The facility emissions. Oops. Let's see. There we go. Oh, so part of meeting with Taylor was SERP development. There we go. Sorry, wrong page. We talked about coming up with definitions. So right here, on the SERP development and implementation page, we started a glossary with common terms and definitions. There were some specific questions about NOVs, notices of violations, and NTCs, notice to comply, when they're used and how they're used. So we added those definitions to there, along with other common terms. And the intent was that this could be a kind of living document that can be added to. We are acronym heavy, and we try not to use them, but we get stuck in that world sometimes. And I've been doing this for 30 years, and every once in a while somebody will throw out an acronym, and I just have to say, I don't remember what that stands for, and we can go over it. So, but we started a running term, and I think we're open to any thoughts and suggestions that people have about what we can put in there that will help with that. And then the last part of it was that there were a lot of questions about the different data and inspections and enforcement actions. And so what we did was we put together a spreadsheet that contains all the information that was in the report, except that now you can sort it and search it yourself if you want to look for specific information. So I'm gonna just open it up here real quickly, and I hope everybody's seeing the spreadsheet now. Yes, good. It starts off, here's the enforcement summary, which just gives an idea of complaint numbers, different violation numbers, and inspection types. And then you can work your way through the facilities here. So if you wanted to search, you could search these by using these pull downs up here, and search by permit number, by address, by name. And then over here, we added a column that talks about the number of facilities that the NOVs, notices of violations, that a facility has got. And most of them have gotten one. There's a couple that have two, but it just notes that information there. Inspections here, we give the date, the name of the facility ID, the address, and then kind of a general description of what type of inspection it was. And again, that's all searchable by address, name, whatever category you wanted to search by. Here is, again, the same violation page that we had previously, except that now it is searchable, and included in this right-hand column is a list of what the violations were issued for. And so you could pull down through there if you wanted to. We'll just take a look here and we'll clear it all. Look at this first one. So this happens to be a gasoline station. They happen to have two different violations, and you can kind of get a brief description here of what they were for. And the last column is, again, this is complaints, and so you can search by all the different categories. You could look for dates and reorder them by dates. And so, and over here is just it continues with what a brief resolution was. So we put that together. I think that takes care of most of the questions, and we hope that you guys find this helpful in the information that you're looking for.
Thanks, John. I just want to add one more thing that you said, and I think you just meant when you look at facilities, if you could click on that tab, and there's a tab that says the number of violations, or a column. Most of them, you said most of them have one. Most of them have zero. I think what you're saying is most of the ones that have a violation have one.
Yes. I'm sorry. Thank you. Although
no, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Here's one that has four. You can see it's a gasoline dispensing facility, and with four, I'm assuming they've had some type of problem out there. All right, I will stop sharing. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, John. So as I mentioned, we do intend at our agenda setting meeting, or even in the chat right now, or with a little bit of time I think we have left on this item, if there is another action item that is, especially if it's a completed action item that we want to kind of review rather than just send an email out, you're certainly welcome to ask us or kind of ask us to elevate that as a particular piece on the agenda. So we're definitely happy to do that. And like I said, the piece that I mentioned earlier about CARB, we're just going to take care of that. CARB is going to do their kind of normal kind of running standing update, and Scott will share some updates there, including that update. So I think that takes care of that as well. But again, I'm open to other questions. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll add any of the action items I'm certain will come out of this meeting to that list, and we'll do this whole process over again.
Thank you both. So it just sounds like there's some appreciative comments about these updates from Jessica and from John. So just wanted to name that. And as Jessica was saying, we do have a little bit of time remaining on this agenda item. So if anybody does have a question or a comment that they'd like to voice at this time, you can raise your hand to let us know. And I think I'm seeing Douglas raising their hand. So Douglas, you can go ahead and unmute and share.
Yes, my computer's acting out. It shut down automatically in the middle of the presentation. The only question I have, the violation, if it's when it's public, where do you get where do you find it in the air quality on the CARB, or where can you find those things?
You're asking just in general. I think if you're asking where do we find where there's a violation, any what we plan to do, and maybe this might have been shared at that October meeting, but I can reiterate, John's team and what we've done in other communities is we've actually done a quarterly enforcement report where it's a quick update that summarizes in the boundary. Now that you've sort of seen the annual report, we can do this on a quarterly basis where we come with, I mean, of course, it's up to you as a committee what we want to use our time on, but that could be part of our regular reporting to the community, Doug. So it's not a search so much as we will come to you with that information.
Yes, I think that's something that's a good idea, because I get a news bulletin from the Department of Real Estate, and whoever violate every quarterly, like winter, spring time, and it's in public, personally. Or I don't know if it goes to your page. I don't know if it goes to other people's page to get the information, to be transparent in every way, So that's what I want to know. If the gas station across the street is in violation, I want to protect my family and my dogs, whatever it may be, that that are closer to within our proximity, So you know what I'm talking about as far as precaution and safety. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Douglas. We do have one more question that came up on the chat. So Clifton asks if someone would be able to post a link to the map with the emission sources. So, it looks like Jessica's on it. Thank you.
Yes, I did that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica.
All right. Any other questions before we transition? Oh, yes, Dr. Catherine.
Yeah, thank you again for this information. I had just a couple of questions to kind of understand both the kind of inspection and review process and what happens if somebody gets a notice of violation, and some of the data that was provided. So the first question is just kind of like, what is a typical action? So I understand that the facility will receive a notice of violation, and then I'm assuming they have to correct it, or potentially they get a fine. But if you all have any more details on that. And then the other thing that I was noticing specifically on the spreadsheet as it was presented was that a lot of the community complaints on things like odor nuisance said not confirmed. So I wanted to clarify whether the typical process when a complaint is registered is for inspectors to go look for it like one time, or if there's kind of a periodic effort to try to validate whether that concern is something that's happening or not. Because obviously when a community member reports the odor, I'm guessing it takes a while for inspectors to go out there and actually see if it's valid. So just wondering on kind of the evidence collection process of community reported complaints.
Sure. Let me try and start with the your complaint question. So as complaints come in, we assign them out to the nearest inspector, and our goal is to get out there as quickly as possible. Particularly things like odors are hard to track down because you can't see it, you can't follow it. Wind and everything moves it around. and they can come and go. And it, of course, it doesn't deal with the whole thing about how different people react to different odors. But our goal is to get out there and try and identify it and track down the source as quickly as possible. If we, depending on when the call comes in, sometimes we'll get calls and they'll say, yesterday this was happening, but it's not happening today. Probably the urgency to get someone out immediately to that is less than if someone calls and says, it's happening right now, it's in this location. We try and gather some information so that we can direct our people to the potential source as quickly as possible. But there are some that we don't find a source on, and do we continue to go back out? We tend to respond more to the complaints. So if there is an odor or a complaint going on and we don't find it, we don't find the source the first time, then we encourage people to let us know, and we'll go back out again and look at it. When we are in the area, if we do smell things, our people are looking for that, and we'll try to identify it. But we're not every place all the time. So I hope, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, the last question. And then the first question was kind of what is the typical process when a facility gets a notice of violation? Recognizing that it may vary depending on the facility.
Right. So typical is that as soon as our inspector discovers it, whether we discover it or it's reported by the facility, is we issue a violation, a notice of violation, and then we work with the facility to identify what they need to do to correct the problem. We're not the problem solver, so we don't tell them what they have to do to fix it, but we identify what the issue is, where there's options. We identify what those options are. Most violations are corrected fairly quickly. It doesn't go on for months, weeks, even. Most of them are corrected day of or very soon. So and then every day that the violation continues to exist is another day of violation. Once we issue a notice of violation, when the problem is corrected and comes to an end, then we go through a settlement process where a penalty is applied to that violation based on the severity and the length and the pollutants involved. And we work through a process to come to an agreement over the penalty settlement amount. In very rare cases, it can go to court if we can't come to some type of an agreement, but that is very, very rare.
Thank you. That's very.
You're welcome.
Thanks everyone for those questions. I think there's one more question in the chat from Douglas. So I'm wondering, John, if you'd be able to type in an answer for that question.
So are we moving on now?
I'll type it in right now.
Yeah, we're right at that time, Mary Elizabeth, but if you do have a question, I think we can make space for one more comment.
I just have a quick question. I think that it's really important that everyone here, whenever you do smell an odor, because I smell odors. I have a fairly sensitive olfactory system, and that we are calling in. And also, I made a complaint about my employer who has over 100 employees at the site, and regarding a trip reduction plan. And I have not heard back about that. And, like there was some negotiation or some, whatever. But I think that, when there are those trip reduction requirements for employers, that they are abided to. And I would also like to ask, that there be a further discussion about the settlement process, because some of the settlements that I have observed in some documents that I've reviewed are ridiculously small. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry, if I could just update on the school one, Mary Elizabeth. Actually, I'm working on that, and I'm having a very hard time getting the getting your employer to respond to me. I get hit and miss some response, and I'm trying to figure out what our next step is on that one. So it's not forgotten. It is just moving very slowly.
Okay, well, that would sound like a notice of violation.
Yeah, I think
Potentially.
John, let's follow up with Mary Elizabeth tomorrow, I think maybe to provide more details, if that works for you both.
I'm available.
That sounds great. So Jessica and John, you'll coordinate offline to address Mary Elizabeth's question. And we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the Community Steering Committee membership evaluation. And Jessica's actually leading the update around this.
Thank you all. So if you recall, I'll kind of take us a little bit of a quick little journey. When we were amending the charter sort of in a group format, there were several different pieces of the charter that folks focused on that felt like needed to be addressed. And one of those, of course, as we've been working on really recently, was a whole section about subcommittees. But another area of focus that we updated in the charter was involving onboarding of new members. And a lot of the discussion that led up to that was just the recognition that, as you can probably all look around the room and see, this makeup is pretty different than maybe about a year ago when we had committee members, whether people have dropped off due to time commitments issues, or they moved, or other various reasons. We have noticed, and of course we take attendance every single meeting, especially of the residents that are eligible for stipends. And in our charter, it does say that folks who have not attended 3 meetings in a row without, of course, like RSVPing and saying, hey, I just can't make it, or having some alternate take their place, we have committed in our charter for the district to follow up in whatever means they prefer to communicate in, to see what their interest is or what's preventing them from participating in steering committee meetings. So during our, really leading up to, but especially during our agenda setting meeting, we had a conversation with folks about not only following up with, in this case, we had about 7 people that fell in that category of haven't been to a meeting in a bit. And I'll get to Brianna's question here in just one second. And then we reached out when we couldn't get a hold of them through email, phone calls, and a few other kind of methods. We then reached out to the person we know on the CSC that is maybe the person that recruited them or knows them professionally. And all of those people eventually did get back to us, whether it was through that person who recruited them or directly to us. And we have 5 resident members who have, for various reasons, decided they can no longer participate. It's 5, maybe pending 6. There's one more person that's kind of weighing their options. To Brianna's question, we actually discussed not maybe putting people on blast by like, hey, here are the people who haven't emailed us or responded to an email and haven't gotten a hold of us on a live streamed meeting. But we have updated the roster currently. So the roster that is online, and maybe Stephanie, if you can drop the roster in. The roster right now that you can see that's posted does reflect up to today the current CSC. So it has removed the folks that were no longer interested or able to participate. So with that, and because those people, it's not like we kicked anyone off, we asked them and they all voluntarily said, hey, I don't want to be on the CSC anymore. Really the feedback and kind of discussion we want to have today is about recruiting new CSC members, especially since they're resident members who left us. I know that it's reflected, and maybe I can pass it along to a few others that can reflect on this a little bit, and maybe even to Margot before I go into some of the details. But it's been reflected many times. It's reflected in the blueprint. It's reflected in a lot of the work that we do, that residents are really the core of this program. And so with having 5, we'll call it 5 for now, because that's where we're at, resident members who have confirmed they no longer want to be a part of this process. What process, or do we agree that we should have a process where we open up, fill those 5 spots? And if so, we actually have some information generally about where in the boundary those 5 people lived. So I can even share with you, maybe there's like strategic recruiting we can discuss at this agenda item about recruiting from certain parts of the neighborhood to make sure we're reflective of like population in the boundary, as well as sort of onboarding process, maybe brainstorm a little bit what we think is the best way to get new members up to speed, since you have all been working so hard and we don't want new people to be A, overwhelmed, and B, so behind that they're, takes a while. So Margot, I don't know, I'll pass it to you really quickly if I captured everything or just kind of the sentiments and when we kind of created this item.
I think you captured it well. The one thing we did talk about was maybe a map to see what all of the current residents are within the boundaries, just so we get a sense of what areas are really lacking some people, and if we, go from there.
So what I did, and maybe we might have done the opposite of that, and maybe it's not quite super reflective, but maybe we can make one after the fact. This is a map we made of, this is the 5 people that have left. So this is where the general area where they live. So in this case, I know it's not a perfect outline, but in this case, they live in this general, 3 people actually left us from this area. One kind of up here in this downtown-ish area, and then one over here just next to the port in the Boggs Tract region. So that is just reflective of the people that have, again, volunteered to no longer be a part of the CSC.
And I guess I'm also wondering if, okay, maybe we can look at it at another time, but within the boundaries, are there pockets where we are really lacking people as well?
I can say just kind of anecdotally that section that had 3 folks. Oops, of course I closed it. That section that had 3 kind of down, just I guess west of the Sierra Vista area, as well as the Sierra Vista area, are lacking in terms of compared to the rest of the boundary in terms of folks. So maybe I'll pass it back to Gabby to sort of facilitate. I guess the first question is just kind of gauging consensus that we would like to, as a committee, backfill or fill in the 5 resident member spots that we've lost, or, people have decided not to be a part of. And sort of, I guess the second question would be, what does that process look like? And I guess we can just sort of brainstorm and take all of that in, and then that can be sort of our action is next step, figure all that out with all the great ideas.
Thanks, Jessica. And I wonder if you can answer some of the comments from the chat. So Brianna asked if someone can share the attendance sheet, if that's something that you'd be able to share with them all. And then there's also just questions about whether or not there's an age limit or a specific age focus of who you're trying to recruit for membership.
Heather, I don't think I mean, youth voice is certainly important. I don't know that we've had an age limit, Heather. I know we actually, when we first started this process, we did have a high school student.
Right. We did, and we just asked for the parent or guardian, to send a supporting letter or a note that basically endorses their participation since they're minors.
Okay, and that answers that question. But yes, otherwise, I don't think we had a limit. So that is a great question. And then I think I answered Brianna's question earlier that in terms of attendance, we didn't want to. Okay, she gave me a thumbs up. We didn't want to exactly like put people on blast for not attending or attending. Although, like I said in the chat, we did, or we can throw in the link to the current roster, so you can see who is on the current roster.
You know what, just to make sure to clarify, the last roster, we do have actually a few updates now. So I'll post the kind of updated one tomorrow for everyone to view because there are some changes.
Sounds good. No problem. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you both. And there's just another comment here from Nate, just noting that, we certainly need coverage of footprint area, but especially in South Stockton, as that is where the highest levels of pollution occur. And I was also noting that Debbie was raising her hand. So wondering, Debbie, if you wanted to share.
Yes, I don't see a reason why we can't get whoever wants to join. If they want to join and they realize there's work and there's going to be other meetings besides this monthly meeting, that if they want to help us out, because we have several committees that do not have enough people on them, that do not have another a co-leader on them. So I don't see a reason why people can't join. Maybe for the first month, you know, we could give them a break of some sort, you know, to where they don't have to, you know, make sure that they understand that they don't have to comment or, you know, whatever. But, something of that nature. But I don't see a reason anywhere in this city, if anybody wants to join, I think we should let them.
So I will say, to clarify, when we are to be resident CSC members, we do ask that they be within the boundary.
Right.
Although I do agree, just in general, you know, anyone who's willing or able or has information, and I know that I could see public members tonight, we are certainly open to you all inviting folks. I know people have expressed to me, hey, I have a friend who's outside but wants to help. Definitely invite them to come and participate as public members, certainly, Debbie. And then, yes, I think you're sharing some of the sentiments of, you know, recruiting people and within this boundary that want to help. We do have a lot of work to get done.
Thank you for that comment. So maybe just to address your first question, Jessica, just about interest in recruiting new members, I'm wondering if folks who are able to type in the chat can just let us know a yes, no. So that might help us to do some tallying later on and just understand what the general consensus is in terms of interest in recruiting. So we'll give folks 1 to 2, like a minute or so to get that done. And then Scott, I'm seeing your hand raised.
Yeah, and sorry, I would have put this in the chat, but I've got something already teed up in there for the portable equipment acquisition system. I didn't want to mess that up. So Jessica, I was hoping, you know, the blueprint and kind of like the guidelines of AB617 are that the committee must be comprised of 50% plus one of residents. So do we have a sense at this point of, with the folks that are departing, where we're at as far as the committee makeup and membership?
I believe, and I like Stephanie said, things kind of change very, very short. I think we are still slightly majority residents, and I'm seeing some nods from my team. So yes, we were actually pretty majorly majority residents as far as some of our other committees go. So yes, to answer your question.
Be great to keep it that way too, huh?
Absolutely.
Great. And I did see a question in there. So the question at this moment is, are you interested in having this CSC explore the option of adding a couple new members? And so then we'll get to talking about what the logistics of that and the recruiting in just a second. But it sounds like for the most part, everybody who is typing in the chat is typing a yes. So for those who haven't had a chance to let us know, please do so in this chat. And if you can't use the chat for some reason, you can feel free to share vocally as well.
I also have a question. Is there going to be term regarding on the board, like 1 year term, 2 year term, when, you know, are they just going to leave and come back or whatever? And you say, I know that there's if they miss 3 meetings, then they're out or call. There's a grace period.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so definitely, I'll answer two parts. I think kind of sound like a couple different pieces. One is there's no term. This would be, you know, you'll be a part of the CSC until you can either no longer participate or the whole process is over, and it is a 5-year process from SERP adoption. But certainly, as I iterated earlier, but I do want to be clear, we did not, even though it says it in the charter that we may, you know, if people don't show up to meetings and don't respond and haven't RSVP'd, even if they RSVP, no, that totally counts as participating. We did not kick anyone off after not participating in 3 meetings. Several people actually didn't participate for several months, let us know, and then came back. So it was definitely, we called and folks themselves told us they weren't going to be on the committee. So we didn't kick anyone off. And certainly this is, I guess, for all of you, if there comes a time, there's 3 months in a row, you can't make a meeting, let us know, or at least, respond to a couple of the emails, and you won't even make that list. It will be hey, this person, they're there's a lot going on and they hope to keep plugged in. They want to stay on the committee. That totally works. In this case, it was people, in one case, someone had come to one meeting in the past 2 years, hadn't responded to doodle polls or any of our calls or email, so it was a lot of outreach, a lot of support from other folks to help us even reach them.
Thanks for answering that, Jessica. I'm just wondering, is there any opposition to moving forward with recruitment? I'm seeing everybody in the chat so far noting yes. Awesome. All right, so with that, maybe Jessica, we can get to your other question just around process. So if you can just share with everybody.
I think maybe now that we see there's support, we've done outreach in the past. Obviously, we had a lot of you who know this very well because you were the ones who helped recruit a lot of the members on this committee. And so maybe kind of seeing some of even just the chat, I guess the question could be, do we support some targeted outreach to those, I saw south, kind of the south portion of the boundary being one of the targeted areas, or do we want to have other folks kind of do that on the ground outreach for us rather than just like a larger blast that might not target kind of the areas we're looking for? I guess that's just sort of the general feedback, and we can just kind of take all the feedback and kind of come up with a plan that we present to everyone after the meeting.
I think having the plan in place would be really good, because, God forbid that we should go out there and get 100 applicants just because we're all talking about it. So just having the plan of how you're going to work this and how you're going to move forward, I think would be really good. But there's a lot of people in the chat that have noted that they could support recruitment and focus on the areas that are underrepresented.
So what we can do, and we can finalize this, we're noting all of this, and I think the folks especially that have noted that they will support it, if this committee is okay with it, then what we can do is, as a district, after kind of we get all this feedback, we can reach out specifically to those of you who have said you could support it, and work with you directly to just reach out to folks and see who might be interested. And start, we can have the application and get people kind of already on sort of the logistics, and then just kind of see where it goes from there. It could be a matter of one, there's the one case like Margot just mentioned, it could be so much, interest. It could be the other where, we start to do this groundwork and, people are busy and it does take a little bit of time. So I do appreciate all of you who volunteered. So
is there an application? Is there an application?
Right. So the application right now is not posted because we've closed that, right? We did that in the initial process. We would open that and send that out. Exactly, Debbie. We would give it to whomever so you can share with your neighbors or folks, especially, again, if we're targeting maybe a specific area, share with people who can do outreach there.
Thank you. And then we have time for one last comment, and I saw Maria had their hand raised. So I'm wondering if you want to share, Maria.
Oh, when we bring new folks in, would it be possible to give them like an orientation of the different subcommittees because I know the new members might get confused when they're starting to receive emails regarding the subcommittees, and they're probably also thinking, do I have to be part of this committee? Am I going to get the stipend? We don't want them to get discouraged, especially we need to, that this is the most important meeting for them to attend in order for them to receive that stipend. The other ones are optional. So we won't discourage them. So they will think you're still going to receive the emails, but at the same time, this is the only one that is going to be most important one for you. attend.
Absolutely. We 100% agree. And I already saw some volunteerism from Dr. Catherine Grupa White and others to help be a part of that onboarding process. And we certainly appreciate that. What we can do, I'm thinking if this works for everyone, is now that we have some folks that are interested in helping with the recruitment, we will work with the outreach team to spruce up whatever we need to from our application. We can work strategically to start that outreach, especially in kind of the regions that have been identified, but certainly anywhere within the boundary. And then the third piece will be starting to maybe even schedule maybe an onboarding or an orientation, as you say, Maria, to help with that. And again, reaching out to those of you who would volunteer to be a part of that, and we can maybe make that sort of a group effort as well.
Thank you for addressing that question, Jessica. And that's actually a really great segue to our next agenda item, which is to talk more about the subcommittees. So I'm going to pass it off to Jessica once again, just to provide some updates, but I promise you're going to hear from our community co-host in just a bit around this item too.
Yes, you will stop hearing from me. This actually is, it might be short, it might be a little bit of just like take time to think a little bit about it, but I just wanted to share with you all. Again, I'm going to open up the website so it just sort of orient ourselves to kind of where what I'm about to share with you is posted. But on our Stockton community page, under subcommittees, if you recall our last meeting, we had those great breakout groups and several folks were asked to sort of self-identify or self-select into what they felt like was their most, the subcommittee of most interest to them. And so these were the different groups that we ended up breaking out into. Actually, one of them, we formed a subcommittee in a breakout group at the time, in real time. We had those discussion documents, and actually, Stephanie, if you can drop the link to this in the chat, folks can follow along. You can actually click. All of the notes that you came up with in those groups are still preserved here in this document. The link here is to the subcommittee webpage that's located on the district's website. And these are the folks that volunteered to co-lead, and the proposed next meeting, or in some cases, super recent meeting, for the measures that have already sort of gotten off the ground. And so I'm sharing this with you because a couple of things. One is that you can see we've already started to almost schedule or actually schedule several of those meetings. You can go to this website here and see what the actions were from that meeting. It has those continuous agendas. But really what I wanted to focus on, not necessarily because we have tons of time on the agenda right now, but because I wanted to sort of get some thoughts going as to, there were a couple of different, really 4 different measures that either maybe because of time, they didn't get to identifying someone as a co-lead, perhaps that measure didn't have a lot of people even break out into that group, so no one identified themselves, or they identified as a co-lead, but there wasn't quite within the notes that we could find, at least, a sort of proposed next step or next meeting. And I'm sharing that with you because for a couple of reasons. One is we do have a lot of subcommittees going, so certainly, especially those that have been plugged into many, know that there's a lot on the schedule or about to be scheduled that will take up some time. But I did want to acknowledge, and maybe whether it's you can raise your hand or you can put in the chat if you or maybe it's someone you think you're going to recruit to be a new member, but if you are interested in either leading or helping lead, it can be sort of a co-lead situation. Any of these that don't have anyone listed or have one person listed, definitely let us know so we can start to work with you on maybe scheduling a meeting, even if the meeting doesn't happen for, in some cases, maybe it's something that we schedule in a couple of months after we kind of get the other ones going, but definitely having a CSC member, if interested, helping lead that would be helpful to us. But I will also say, I'm going to share a couple of things and I'll stop sharing, but the link is in the chat. I will say 2 things. One is that if we don't get someone, that doesn't mean we're not going to start convening. If after the end of this meeting, and maybe one more try at the agenda setting meeting, folks really aren't, there isn't one particular person, we as the district will continue to facilitate that meeting. So for example, the bike lanes infrastructure, if someone is not intending to be the main co-lead, maybe there's a capacity issue or they don't feel like they want to take that leadership role yet they want to be involved, we will then just, kind of start that process. We can doodle and get that committee going, and maybe eventually over time someone might volunteer to help. We definitely don't want to put any pressure. I just wanted to share with you the summary of what happened so that folks, maybe you were thinking about it or you weren't quite sure what happened in a group you weren't involved with. We just wanted to share with you kind of what happened. With that, basically what we're going to do is at the end of probably our agenda setting meeting, like I said, with that extra time for people to think about it, once it becomes a little clearer that the district will take the lead initially, we will start to then propose a schedule for the rest of these meetings to get kicked off. So I do see some comments in the chat. I really appreciate that. We will note these and follow up with those folks. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Ed. Oh, awesome. Lots of great awesome. Cool. Lots of great comments. I really appreciate it. We will edit all of those and add some folks into that. And yeah, that's got really all I have, unless there are other folks that had questions or maybe wanted to volunteer. Like I said, you can click into those documents or on those subcommittee pages to see if you can't quite remember what the measure was or what measures were included in that committee. You can click into the website and we have a summary and a list of those measures. So definitely lots of great information. And again, thank you all to those who have already volunteered and already co-led meetings. Like Gabby said, we're actually going to go over some of those updates from those meetings if there aren't any questions after this.
Do you have any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment, and that's I was very fortunate at the last meeting. I was in a group that was fairly dynamic and fairly large. I think there were 6 or 7 people on it. But I talked to people who had 1 or 2 and they were feeling really lonely in their group. So because we could only choose 1 last time, I think that was kind of a hindrance. But I think many of us are interested in many of these subcommittees, assuming that there's time for them in our schedule. So that's all.
Thank you, Margot. And I think given that comment, I don't know if you want to transition there, but did you want to queue up your idea about the quick poll to capture some of that information?
Well, how are we going to do that? I don't know how we were going to do that.
I can definitely share if that's helpful. So what Margot had suggested, just to get input on who's interested in more than one subcommittee. And so as Jessica shared earlier, these are completely voluntary and you don't have to participate at all. But as Margot was noting, there were some people who might have been interested in participating in more than one. And so Margot came up with this idea about conducting like a quick survey poll just to get a sense of who those folks are so that we can make sure to coordinate and include those folks throughout the process as these are being built out. I know the Air District have shared with everybody that attendance and participation in these will be open to anybody who's interested, but this might just be a more systemic way for us to capture that information and just get a general sense of where the interest is. So what I'm going to do is actually just drop a quick link. And for those of you who can't answer this right now, either because you joined mobily or in some other way, this is a tool that the Air District can share out after this meeting so that you can answer then as well. So I'm actually going to drop that in the chat. And Margot, if you have anything else that you would like to add in terms of sharing more about the idea you had, feel free to let folks know.
Well, yeah, this is, I assume this is going to be a poll where you can indicate how, all what you're really interested in, like 3 or 4 or 5, whatever committees. I can't quite picture it just yet, but it's not written in stone. No one is committed to attend meetings that they really can't stand. But I think we need to get a sense that there are more of us interested in many more of these issues. That's why they're in our SERP. And I just wanted people to feel good about what they were focused on. but I just can't quite picture how the poll's going to work. So I guess that's me.
No problem, Margot. So we just put a link in the chat. So what people can do is click directly into the link, or you can copy and paste it onto your browser. It has a few short questions. One will allow you to select all the committees you're interested in joining, and one will allow you to select one committee that you may be interested in leading. It also asks you to include just your name and then, you know, your affiliation or your identity to this group. And then what we'll share with everybody is just kind of the total numbers of how many people are interested in each of the groups, but we won't actually share who's interested in what quite yet. That kind of information will be taken in and reviewed by the Air District in more detail.
And I want to remind people as well that they're going to receive the notifications when these committees meet, when these subcommittees meet. So anytime people want to join in, even if they haven't signed up on it, that's the plan. Thank you.
So maybe if we could take just 1 to 2 minutes for folks to answer these questions, and then we'll see what responses are coming in. And if you have any issues accessing the survey link, let us know. And like I said, we can also follow up with it as well, and you can answer after this meeting.
Will you get these notes live right now?
Yes, I will share that in a moment. Actually, I can start to share what results are coming in with you all, and I'll continue to refresh because these numbers are going to change. So if everybody can see here, what this is showing us is just the count of individuals who are interested, or the count of individuals who are interested in each of the subcommittees. So if I refresh, we might have new responses now. And in terms of leading, we have a sense of how many people are interested in leading each of these. Because we are getting the names of people, you know, the Air District will be able to take this information more systematically and use it to actually coordinate in more detail. But this information that's being shared here will really just help everybody get a sense of which ones are more popular and how many people would like to participate in each. And we do have a response option to indicate if you're not interested at all, and that's totally fine as well. So whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever you're interested in doing.
We need a little music here. You know.
And would you like to hum something for us, Margot?
That a volunteer.
And we'll give people maybe just about 1 to 2 more minutes. So I can just share quickly what's being shown here and maybe zoom in because I know this is a little hard to read probably. But it looks like there's at least 4 people interested in the trees, the residential measures, and the heavy duty trucks. These could all be different people. There's about 3 people interested in regulatory and enforcement, outreach, and infrastructure, and 2 people interested in school measures, with an additional 2 interested in Eevee mechanic training. And then somebody else has raised the other topic, which would be algal blooms. And so that there's 1 person at this moment interested in that. I'm going to do one final refresh to see if anything has changed. And again, oh, here we go. Trees is really popular. But these numbers will probably continue to change as folks continue to answer this short survey. And, you know, this information is just helpful for you all to know where there's interest and how many folks you can expect will be participating in some of these meetings. I'm going to scroll down just to show kind of the interest in leading. So it looks like at least for most subcommittee topics, there's at least one person who's interested in leading. And for this one, you were only able to select one. So there's no actual overlap between the topics selected here. So these are all different individuals who are interested in leading some of these subcommittees. So this is great. There is less interest in the school measures, regulatory enforcement, and infrastructure in terms of leading, but as the Air District mentioned, they're happy to continue coordinating and supporting and moving some of this work forward if folks aren't able to commit as much time into leading some of these groups.
Also, there have been, I know it's hard to see the chat when you're sharing, there have been some folks in the chat interested in a couple of those, so I appreciate that, those that threw it in the chat.
Thank you. And I can actually just share the link to this live report in the chat. You know, you can continue to monitor these results and have access to this as people are continuing to fill out the information, and everything here is anonymized at the moment. So you can continue to check in if you're interested. I believe, oh, go ahead, Jessica.
I think it's locked down unless other people were able to open it. It won't let me open that.
Oh, okay. I wonder if there's some issues with that. Okay, I can work on that and send it out afterward as well.
Perfect.
So I believe those were the main things we wanted for this section. So I'll just pause to see if there's any questions about what has been shared so far, or even the purpose of this poll or anything like that. And I want to thank Margot again for this idea and for helping us move this forward and really help to organize some of the work that Taylor had started in planning all of this last month too. And I think the last thing, Jessica, was just hearing some general reflections from this group about how the check-ins went in those small groups last month. And so, you know, last month we really wanted to dedicate most of the time to actually having conversation in those groups, because as you all may remember, there were a lot of questions to cover. So we didn't actually have a chance to reflect afterward about how the process went and if there was anything that could have been improved about that. And so we just wanted to open it up and see if there's any feedback or comments that folks would like to share with us, just to note for any future engagements like that. And it's totally okay if folks have no reflections. And if you have any comments to share in the chat, you can also feel free to note it. Oh, yeah,
I
go
have
ahead,
a
Debbie.
comment. As far as the regulatory committee, I appreciated the Air District helping, specifically Heather, and also Scott. There was just me and the two of them, and it's a very tedious subject, but I think we'll get through it, and I think it's an important one. And I would like to invite John, since he is a compliance person, to the meeting when we do have one in about February.
We definitely, that in regulatory enforcement, the list of measures there is pretty varied, and an enforcement compliance person is certainly, and probably John didn't say it here, but I can out him. It's pretty common knowledge, and he sometimes reflects it in his verbiage, but he doesn't quite. John is retiring in March, so he will have a meeting. But we will also have another member from our enforcement division, as well as CARB folks and lots of other, like you said, it's definitely a lot going on in that group. So we'll have lots of other folks.
Yes.
And John did hop off the meeting, but I will let him know that you all now know that John is retiring after 20 some, maybe 30 years of service. I'm not quite sure the number.
Good for him. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. Any other comments or anything else around this section of the agenda? All right, I think we also fixed the report link, so I'm going to try dropping it back in the chat, but just let me know if you still can't see it, and we can, of course, follow up after this meeting, after we troubleshoot. With that, we're going to transition to some of our standing updates. So the first update we have will be from Scott at CARB.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Scott Wall with the California Air Resources Board. Well, Jessica did kind of tip her hat a little bit earlier about the portable emission acquisition system update document that we actually had distributed to the steering committee a couple of weeks ago. I have just posted this back in chat. And that document really was meant to serve as us not taking a lot of committee time going through point by point of the comments that we'd received. So just as a quick refresher, our enforcement division, Eric Bissinger, actually, I think in the October meeting gave you an enforcement kind of update from the California Air Resources Board that included some discussion about this portable emission acquisition system. There were several recommendations and comments, so we put together this 2-page PDF with our enforcement division that there's a link in there that actually shows you a YouTube of how it works, as well as some responses to the recommendations and comments that you had provided us. So I'm not going to give that much more time, but if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. I believe we have a couple of our enforcement folks here that worked on this flyer that could answer any questions you have about what we produced. But while you're thinking about that, I did also actually want to discuss real briefly the OEHA health effects update. You may notice that OEHA, or this, and I'm acronym heavy here, so I'll try to back up a little bit. The Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment is one of our sister agencies, and we call them OEHA, again, Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. I would not want to work for that agency just because of the long name alone. But we did remove that from the standing updates on the agenda. The Air District actually first added this to the agenda about 5 or so months ago as the steering committee was discussing SERP measures and health effects. Well, since the SERP was approved, really priority has understandably been placed on rolling up our sleeves and getting the work going on implementation. And there's been a lot of great momentum that none of us wanted to get in the way of in that area. So all of that said, really what I wanted to share with you is that OEHA and CARB, we are and have been prepared to engage in discussion with you about the health effects topic. And if there is broad committee interest in this topic for a future meeting, please request that it be added to the agenda at an upcoming agenda setting meeting. Otherwise, if there's not broad committee interest in it, we're just going to go ahead and place this item on hold indefinitely. And with that, certainly can take any questions or comments about that update or about the portable equipment acquisition system document. I don't see any, so that's really all we have today.
All right, are there any other comments or anything to share with Scott? Okay, yeah, Jonathan.
Scott, just when you say indefinitely, what was it again? Taken off the schedule?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, so what we basically, OEHA and CARB have been prepared to bring to the steering committee a conversation presentation about air pollution and health effects. We've actually, because all the great momentum and everything going on with the CSC, nobody wanted to step in the way of that. So we've stepped away from that after being on the agenda updates for about 5 months. We're prepared anytime anybody would like to engage in a discussion with that. We're prepared to engage in that conversation with the CSC, but it really needs to be at your request. and hopefully with the bulk of the committee wanting to engage in that conversation. Otherwise, and I'll just say this too, Jonathan, you know, offline, if you have a strong interest in the topic or you have specific questions and it's not of greater kind of, I guess, concern or interest with the full CSC, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and we can certainly have some offline conversations and bring in the OEH folks for that as well.
And if I could flag one of the thoughts that also came through my head, and I feel like we're on the same page with Debbie, was we can also parlay it into if we're going to recruit new members and they need to sort of be one of the onboarding processes we did with you all early in the process was have that OEH discussion, have that CARB health effects discussion. So Debbie, totally thinking on the same page. Maybe it's something, Scott, we can work on for that meeting. And then of course, interested folks from the sitting steering committee can also attend as sort of a reminder as well.
Can I just ask Scott what, so if you and OEH were going to do a presentation, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a half hour? Are we talking about a long meeting, or are you saying that it would delay some of our other work? I guess I don't understand why it isn't something that the committee, that we haven't asked for.
Well, great question. I think that we had the original presentation piece, including a little bit of room for conversation, maybe some breakout groups, had targeted to be about an hour to an hour and a half, could certainly be scaled up or pared down. But really the whole idea was to maybe have a little bit of information sharing that's high level, and then allowing folks to break out into groups where they could delve a little bit deeper and ask some specific questions they might have about specific topics as it relates to the health effects of air pollution. And again, you know, certainly happy to make this happen. Just seemed like it fell a little bit to the wayside in priorities with the whole CERP approval, and then, hey, let's get busy, let's get these subcommittees going. And there was just so much great energy with all that we didn't really want to step into that and slow down that momentum. But certainly anytime anybody would like to bring this on and there's you know, a bulk of the committee that's interested in it, we're ready to bring it to whatever meeting you'd like us to bring it to.
Okay, Jessica, how do we determine whether the committee is looking at that? Because I think coming with the new year, this might be a real opportunity to focus a meeting on that. But it would be separate from our CSC, I'm guessing.
Well, and that's part of, I think, Scott's piece of the discussion there. Yeah, is it a separate meeting? Is it the same meeting? There was just kind of, I don't think maybe as collectively as a CSC closed that loop. And in particular, yeah, was it about certain measures? Is it just overall? So that is maybe this can be teed up. I don't know if we have a couple minutes I think we're a little ahead on the agenda, Gabby. I don't know if we have a couple minutes to have that discussion now if people are interested, or we can maybe follow up with like a quick poll of folks. I do know we have lots of subcommittee updates right now. But to Scott's point, and I wonder if maybe at the agenda setting meeting, knowing that this is the conversation, that we can have that deep dive discussion with folks and plan that out a little bit better. Scott is committed and he attends those meetings every time, so he can also communicate that to OEH.
Jessica, I do think we have a little bit of time if folks are interested in sharing their input, but I do like the other suggestion otherwise to talk more in detail at the agenda setting meeting as well, since there will be a lot more time to discuss there. But if anybody has any initial thoughts, please let us know in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and let us know. It sounds like some folks will be discussing internally, and so maybe coordinating at the agenda setting meeting.
I will say that one of the things that we have kind of kicked back and forth a little bit is you know, there is the one side of let's have a separate meeting where the folks that are interested in it could attend, but then there's also the other kind of school of thinking, which is making sure that the entire committee is operating from the same level of knowledge and understanding as well. And so that's, I think, something that not a decision that I am particularly comfortable making, and so would be, if there's large enough interest to create a separate meeting, certainly would be willing to put that together, but also understanding the fact that particularly with this committee that is really great about everybody wanting information, would be creating an opportunity for everybody to be receiving the same information as well and operating from the same level, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Before your comment, Jessica, I just want to raise the comment that Jonathan put on there asking if Scott could share some of this information in an email. And then, yeah, Jessica, go ahead.
I'm wondering, just kind of hearing all this, and so that we don't, we can talk a little bit more at the agenda setting, but I'm wondering kind of with Debbie's idea and then even Margot's thought of like new year, new opportunity, if whenever, for a variety of reasons, health impacts and refresher on the SERP, I wonder if this onboarding meeting that we have sometime in the new year, I'm thinking just timing wise with recruiting and getting people on board, and I'm thinking end of January, sometime in February, by the time we get an onboarding meeting. I wonder if it's sort of an onboarding / refresher, and it can cover this health effects piece for people that are interested. It's of course onboarding and bringing on new people, but it's also refreshing folks that maybe it's been a while since you've looked at the full SERP. Maybe it's been a while since you've understood all of the other requirements of AB617. To Scott's point, we've been kind of diving deep, but maybe taking sort of like a large step back and seeing the full picture. And so we can sort of make it a 2-for-1 meeting, and it's kind of an opportunity maybe a little bit to meet the new people. And we'll focus, of course, on the new folks, but then we can bring this discussion a bit there. And so maybe I'll just leave that there as food for thought. And then at the agenda setting meeting, we can sort of finalize some details.
Thanks for that input, Jessica. And then I'm hearing some validation here from Jonathan, who said it might make more sense to combine it as a refresher workshop. So maybe just picking up on this thought at the agenda setting meeting will be good. I'm going to move us along to the next standing update, which is the community air monitoring update from Chai.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so as noted in previous meetings, that we are still continuing the band monitoring at the Little Manila Center. They've graciously allowed us to plug in over there and continue monitoring and just leave the van out over there. So it was put in place in October 27th. So we have just a little bit over a month of data coming from there, and we're going to continue to leave it there. Huge thanks to Manila Center and also to Matt Holmes for really literally hooking us up to that location. So we're going to try to obtain as much data as we can moving forward while we're still working with all the various locations and getting the lease agreements in place and all of that. And the ones that are getting a little bit close is, again, the Hagen Museum. Need to work out some electrical details with them and finalize the lease agreement. And also with the Port of Stockton for the Boggs Tract community farm area, which is very, very close to pretty much right next to the Boggs Tract community center. So still working along with that. And the other one, I think, which was mentioned in the last meeting, which I wasn't here, but I think Brad had mentioned that we are taking a dual path to see whatever we can get. And I understand that the committee really wanted to get the Sierra Vista Housing Authority location. So we're continuing our efforts with them, working on that. And at the same time, we've been working with the fairgrounds, and the fairgrounds has actually gone pretty quickly, and now they're pretty much ready to go. They reviewed we gave them a sample of the contract agreement and all of that, lease agreement. So they're ready to go on that end, but we're still waiting to hear back from the Sierra Vista Housing Authority and see what type of movement we can go on from there. But we'll see where that goes. I think if that takes a little bit longer, maybe we can come back to the committee here and see if everybody wants us to just go ahead and proceed with the fairgrounds, or we can wait a little bit longer and see where we can go with the Sierra Vista Housing Authority. And that's it for my update. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chai. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, well, oh yeah, Maria.
So I did my due diligence to actually assist and reach out with the Parks and Recs regarding the Van Bersker Community Center. And they actually replied to me. They said that unfortunately they won't be able to install the monitor because I know right now the Van Bersker Park is going through a lot of renovations sections at the same time. And they did let us know to contact Conway Homes and to reach out to the Housing Authority for that and see if they can assist us with that part.
All right, thank you, Maria. And so you mentioned, so that was for the Bogstrack Community Center, right? The one that you said that.
No, this one is for Van Bersker Community Center, which is the park.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because remember, it was originally
That's
it was gonna be for Taft Elementary School. Yes, that's why.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thanks for taking care of that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Maria. All right, I think with that, then we will move on to the next standing update around the trees subcommittee. And then I believe Nicholas and Brianna might be providing the update for this month.
Hey, thank you. So Nico and I we just had our orientation with Little Manila today. And well, I don't think we have really any updates since we'll be having a meeting on Monday with Grant and some other folks about getting TCC started again. So yeah, I don't know, Nico, if you want to add anything else, or Clifton too.
Yeah, I think Clifton might have more to offer here since this was our first day back. Yeah.
Thank you both. Clifton, was there anything else you would add to that?
I can just kind of give a brief overview, I guess, of what we've sort of been talking about at the last meeting in November. We are kind of in the stages of making a plan to plant trees. In other words, where we're going to target not only tree plantings, but distinguishing tree plantings, but also vegetative barriers, which is really sort of like a hedgerow using more shrubs and trying to create barriers between these pollution sources and the communities. So yeah, if other people are interested in the tree subcommittee meetings, we'd be glad to have you and get your input on specific sources of pollution in the community and how we can really focus our efforts and get the most out of our funding that we're going to be using to plant trees and plant vegetative barriers to sop up as much pollution as possible, carbon dioxide and nitrous oxides and particulate matter, and really look at where the dust and sources are coming from that are needed. But other than that, we're having our next meeting in January, and then we'll really start looking at more planting locations. With previous work with Nico and Brianna, we'll be able to utilize as far as tree lists that we've been making to try to pick out appropriate street trees, as well as trees that we can use to plant up larger areas to really create green zones as pollution sinks. So yeah, we're hoping there'll be some, we'll be able to utilize the overlap with TCC and AB617 as far as tree planting and urban greening. But yeah, there are also, I think here are a few other members of the tree subcommittee meeting. Does anyone else has any other updates? I think that's about all from me.
Thank you. I saw Nicholas raise their hand, so not sure if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, Clifton touched on it at the end, but I was gonna say that like a big part of our discussion just internally, and I think in the subcommittee, is the leveraging different funds across the state funded projects to get trees in the vegetative barriers and get maintenance. You know, like we can plant the trees, but what about the years afterwards? So getting them irrigated, getting, you know, perhaps the Greater Valley Conservation Corps involved in the maintenance of the trees, and, you know, just training the workforce to do all of the work that comes afterward. So all of those conversations are picking back up. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Douglas, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I was at the tree subcommittee as well, and the thing that I'm over that also was a major discussion about what breed of tree that's able to tolerate the heat and able to grow part of this within the Stockton area. So we're supposed to get the information, what kind of tree that get able to tolerate different area within the area of the boundary of Stockton. That I know that we're limited on water, so we need to make sure that the tree get kicked in and grow fast, and the following year want to get heated up again. So that's the only concern I have before we get the grant, so we know what kind of tree to buy for that fit to our community as well. That's all.
Thanks, Douglas. Debbie?
Yes, who do we contact? I don't think I can attend, but I would like to send some recommendations on some trees. My family is in the nursery business, so it has been and still is.
Oh.
So
I'll message you. I'll send you a message with my email, Debbie, and yeah, I would like to definitely touch base with you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I'll move us along to the next update around the Eevee Mechanic Training Subcommittee, and I believe Ed's going to be providing the update for this.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. I'm very excited about a step that we're going to be taking tomorrow in a presentation with Valley Clean Air Now, which I'll henceforth refer to as Valley Can. And Margot kind of spilled the beans a little bit. We had a really robust group in the Eevee mechanic area, and Taylor is helping us keep very good notes regarding this. But I want to encourage anyone that might be interested. We've already talked about the leverage a little bit, and one of the things we don't want to do is develop a new mousetrap when there may be systems that we can plug into that will already work. And so we thought that it would be best to do this town hall, which, just to be clear, is not just Stockton. It includes Fresno and Shafter and Arvin if they'd like to be involved. Now, I want to, go forward and say I'm proud to be a part of Stockton. Stockton has set aside in our SERP the highest amount of money. It's still not a tremendous amount, but it is a significant amount, and that's $150,000. Fresno's next with 75, Shafter's next with 30, and Arvin is still developing their SERP. One of the things we want to do is at least attempt to use this money in the most effective manner possible. And Valley Can is already doing the tune in, tune up services for the Air District. And we, in discovery, we found out that they actually have existing relationships with many of the junior colleges, the vocational colleges up and down the valley, from Bakersfield all the way to Delta College. And, you know, I just want to say this because we're very, very lucky. Sal Vargas is the retired dean from Delta College, and he's been willing to help us along the way. So he'll be a part of this ultimately, off and on part of the committee, and I'm excited about that. If you have some time tomorrow, it's between 3 and 4. We're going to have this presentation by Valley Can, and there's lots of questions. Taylor and I and Margot and the rest of our committee already developed a significant amount of questions that are going to be asked, and I'm sure there'll be some more questions that are developed. And we're hoping to find a way. You know, the goal here, the golden ring, is that we want to get young people involved in EV mechanics to provide good livings for these people, potentially $100,000 a year jobs, maintaining equipment, not just cars, but also forklifts. And I'm really excited about it. I'm very thankful that the district's given Taylor and myself the kind of stroke, or whatever you want to call it, to continue to move this forward. And tomorrow we're going to find out some very, I think, valuable information.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Just for the sake of time, I'm going to move us along to the next update. So this is the indoor air update from Elaine.
Hey everyone, Elaine Labson, Health Equities Director with Livermore Rising. So yesterday we kicked off our first indoor air quality and weatherization subcommittee meeting yesterday, and huge thanks to Matt Holmes for supporting and being able to facilitate the meeting, as we saw it as a learning process on the design and structure of the subcommittee meeting. This is for Catherine and I to co-lead the next subcommittee meeting. And then we had a few CSC members attend, as well as Air District and CARB. We reviewed the CERT measure, as well as understand some of the existing weatherization programs from other AB617 communities and other communities who are implementing these programs. Really trying to understand what's missing and who can and who is missing from the conversation, and what expertise can they provide to that. We also got to learn from Joel Urfis from RAMP, which stands for Regional Air Management and Prevention. They are a partner organization we invited, and they focus a lot on reducing asthma and health equity issues, and working on health equity issues in the Bay Area. But they do have some experiences working with the Bay Area Management District on indoor air filtration programs as it relates to asthma mitigation. And so we were able to see the request for quotation work plan to really understand an existing work plan that's already out there. And so we'll be resuming our subcommittee meeting in January, being mindful of the holidays. And that next subcommittee meeting is going to be on January 11th at 4 p.m. And then normally we're going to have our meetings on every fourth Tuesday at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. And then finally, we have one really quick announcement from the Air District.
Yes, so I just have a brief announcement. So we at the Air District, as we expand into now 4 communities, and you've probably seen this already, but we've made it official, but we have a couple of different outreach air quality specialist folks who work and email you constantly. One, of course, as you know from the past year or two now, is Zong, but the other who has come onto our team more recently is Stephanie Ng, who's here right now. In order to sort of facilitate and streamline who to contact and which email you're going to get information from. We have sort of officially split the duties among both of them. And so Stephanie Ng is officially your Air District sort of representative on the Community Strategies and Resources team. So I just wanted to let everyone know that and to welcome her officially into the official role. She's also taking on another community as well as lots of other duties, but she, as well as of course, all of us are available for contact, but definitely AB617@valleyair.org is the #1 email address because it gets to a lot of us, but you can feel free to reach out to Stephanie anytime. She is here for you and she is your Stockton representative. So I just wanted to make that announcement. Thank you, Gabby. And maybe I'll pass it along to Stephanie to sort of introduce. I don't know if she's had that opportunity before.
Yeah, I think I've had the privilege of working with a lot of you, but good to formally meet you all. And I really look forward to continuing to work with you and hoping to be a great resource for you all in the future. And I'll go ahead and drop my email into the chat if you ever want to reach out. But like Jess said, the AB617 email is also a great way to reach us.
Thanks, Jessica and Stephanie. And then Douglas, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes, yeah, it's been a great meeting today. I would like to get the information from both the Port of Stockton as well as the Air Quality Monitor. Send me the link of the available when you're gonna have the next board meeting, so I can able to understand what are being said and what's been brought up, and what I just want to be educated about that also with the 7119. Can I do it? Can you get that, or can we get the information for that too?
I think maybe, and I don't know if Beth is still on the call. You're asking for information about the port board meeting. Was that your question, Doug?
Yes, and also the air quality as well.
Next Port Commission meeting. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, we can follow up and find that. I think Jeff might have dropped. I struggle seeing all of the boxes at once, but Jeff might have dropped off, but we can follow up with you, Doug. The Port Commission meeting information. And then you're talking about your monitoring data. Chai, I think you put in the chat, there was another great similar about the small amount of information we've been able to collect so far with the van. We'll share shortly before the next meeting. Chai, is that what you said in the chat?
Yeah. I think things are getting a little bit here that I can't hear all the words, but yeah, we can put something together. I know we only have like about 4 to 5 weeks of data, but I think it'll still be something that would be good to take a look at. So we can prepare something just really quick, and in our next CSC meeting, I'll provide it within the update and kind of show the charts of what we have so far.
Thanks, everyone. And then Mary Elizabeth also just posted information on the next port meeting. So we'll make sure to capture this in the action items. I want to do a quick time check and just honor the fact that we're nearing the 7 p.m. mark. And I know that folks have a really busy day. So I do want to wrap us up by sharing action items and then also letting people know about the next meeting. So maybe as I'm working up to queue up the screen here, want to let everybody know that the next agenda setting meeting is on Thursday, December 9th at 3 p.m. And then our next meeting, our next CSC meeting will be Wednesday, January 5th at 5 p.m. as always, using the same Zoom link. So some of the action items that came up from today's meeting are listed in this table here. And as you can see, this is the same table that the Air District was sharing progress on earlier this evening. And so from now on, we will continue to use this format to share these updates. So I will just leave them kind of displayed on the screen, but we will also try to see if we can paste those in the chat for everybody to see. So the Air District will follow up directly with CSC members on recent violations to recent complaints. The Air District will share an updated CSC member roster as of December 1st. And this will be posted for public viewing. The Air District will also work with CSC members who are interested in supporting and recruiting more CSC members to develop a plan to target some of these new members. And then WEHA and CARB would like to develop a series of training and informational sessions. So interested CSC members should attend the agenda setting meeting. As I mentioned, that one's happening next Thursday, December 9th at 3 p.m. And then we're still capturing some of the ones we just heard right now. So those will be updated here as well. with that, I do want to see if there's any public comment. Since we didn't get a chance to stop a little bit sooner, I want to honor that space and hear if there's anything that folks would like to share.
Gabby, real quickly, this is Ed. There's been some interest in the chat regarding tomorrow's meeting, and I'm not as adept at working in the chat as I should be, but there is further up in the chat, Jessica put a link that you can click into for tomorrow's meeting, and I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. There has been some interest. Leonard, thank you. If you have trouble, please get a hold of me, and I'll make sure that you can get on board. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I just reposted it too, so that is fresh as the last message. Do we have any other comments? And at this point, I will also ask for folks to check the YouTube live and let me know if there's any comments on there as well. And then do we have any final remarks from either Jessica or Margot?
I wanted to just let you know, I dropped in the chat. It was a suggestion from Jonathan. We shared it last meeting, but we'll share again the link to the free smog repair event that we call Tune In, Tune Up. It is happening on December 4th, which is this Saturday at 8 a.m. at the fairgrounds.
Thank you, Jessica. And then Margot?
Yeah, I just want to thank each and every one of you for being on these calls every month and more frequently, sometimes for so long. I really appreciate all the work everyone's doing, and someday we will all know each other. So everybody have a very safe and very happy holidays.
Thank you so much, Margot, and thanks for volunteering for this month. And if you're interested in co-leading next month, let us know, and there will also be opportunity to raise your hand at the agenda setting meeting as well. Thanks everyone for participating and joining us this evening, and we will talk to you soon.
Happy holiday, everyone.
Happy holidays. Then Amy, can we